Welcome to Pod Applaud, the Monday through Friday podcast that aims to enable your podcast habit. I'm your host, Seb, and today we are going to talk about Parcast podcast Extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial is a podcast that looks into the reports of alien abductions and encounters. It releases every Tuesday and currently has 5 full episodes and a short introduction as well. So far, the episodes have been between 40 minutes and an hour long. Each reporter case has been spread over 2 episodes so far. Extraterrestrials, ETs, aliens, invaders from space, little green men. Call them what you will. At the end of the day, I know very little about these solar suspects. I thought perhaps it is time I learn a little lore about our nebulous neighbors. So, Parcast Extraterrestrials is just one of the podcasts I downloaded to breach the subject. I liked the work Parcast was doing with mythology, so I was expecting something similar in Extraterrestrial. However, I ended up being a bit disappointed. There is some high-quality soundscape and musical elements to Extraterrestrial, but it is not as immersive or atmospheric as it could be. Extraterrestrial does away with building the scene using sound, music, and voice acting in favor of utilizing 2 hosts. The problem is that there is really no point to having the 2 hosts. The show is completely scripted, and each host simply alternates sentences on the script. I'm not even fully convinced the hosts are in the same room as each other. They don't really react to the last line that was said, interact with each other, or let much personality shine through in their readings. There's no real passion in this podcast. It kind of feels flat, like when kids are forced to read out a history book 1 paragraph at a time in school. When I was in school, I used to tune out the other students reading and just read the on-page text to subvert the droning. Sadly, that is not an option in this experience. It is like Parcast found 2 people with great voices. Honestly, their voices are great. And just gave them informative but dry scripts. It feels almost like a farce or a parody of the Grassroots podcast hosted by people who are actually interested in their subject matter. Whether or not you like the humor of something like Last Podcast on the Left, those hosts know how to interact with each other and engage an audience. It is hard for me to actually talk specifically about the subject matter because I have listened to nearly all of the episodes released so far, and I was so unengaged that I can barely remember the cases. I have a pretty good memory, and usually anything I listen to I can recall quite well, but it is like my brain just turned off listening to Extraterrestrials. I remember the cases lacking any sort of personal opinion. They were just very stately and orderly, following through point by point, chronologically, touching upon the lives of the characters throughout the events and over the course of their lives. Simply put, the show is weird. Despite the lack of personality or personal opinion, at the end of the case, the hosts give a believability rating. So even though the show is devoid of any sentiment, at the end the hosts state an opinion, one ranking between the 2 of them that isn't discussed at all or negotiated. It's just read off a script. Here on Pod Applaud, I rate shows on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is silence, 2 is a slow clap, 3 is applause, 4 is a round of applause, and 5, of course, is a standing ovation. I give Extraterrestrial 2 out of 5, a slow clap. I could use this podcast to zone out or fall asleep to if I wanted. The audio presentation is inoffensive, but it doesn't capture my attention at all. Sometimes I see people complain on the internet about how some host personality or humor annoys them, maybe Extraterrestrials is for those people. There's no personality or humor here. For the rest of us, we'll probably stick to the hosts that at least have some personality injected into their shows. So, that's been the show for today. I hope you found it valuable. If you wish to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter at Podapplaud or send me an email to podapplaud@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and please tune in again.